Hi, my name's Damian Rowley from the UK, known as Demon or Damo. I'm currently travelling around North and South America on my KTM 690, exploring and filming while I'm doing it.
Welcome to the Real Riders Podcast. My name's Simon Josie, and if this is your first time here, welcome and thanks for listening. As you heard at the start, my guest for today's episode is Damian Demon Rowley, for whom motorcycling has been central to his life since his late teens. After a varied career in motorcycling, he headed off in 2024 on a two-wheeled world tour, and I've been following him via his YouTube channel and Instagram account as he's vlogged his way through North and South America. Before we get to my chat with Damian, let me remind you that the podcast has an account on Instagram where you will find, amongst other things, trailers for each new episode. And if you want to know what I've been watching recently, follow the Real Riders account on Blue Sky. Links for both the Instagram and Blue Sky accounts are in the show notes. Finally, if you have the time and inclination, please consider rating or liking the Real Riders podcast in your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. This will help other listeners find the podcast. Righto, let's get to my talk with Damian. Welcome to the podcast, Damian, or I guess I'm going to call you Demon from now on. Thanks for joining me on the show today. How are you? And perhaps you can tell us where you are exactly today.
Yeah, good. I'm well, thanks, and thank you very much for having me on. I'm absolutely stoked. Currently, I am in Manizales in Colombia, kind of south of Medellin, directly across from Bogota. Okay,
and actually, when did you leave home? Like, how long have you been on the road for?
Almost a year. I left home on May the 27th, 2024, and so yeah, almost a year now. It's flashed by, though. Certainly doesn't feel like a year.
Okay, look, once again, I'm going to point the dear listener to some other podcast appearances that you've made in recent months and suggest they check those out after listening to our chat. Specifically, you made an appearance on the Trail and Adventure Motorbike podcast, surprise, surprise, Season 7, Episode 18, which was published in mid-February this year. And actually earlier you made an appearance on the Motorcycle Radio podcast, which was Season 2, Episode 1, and that was published in early January. I'm going to try and avoid covering the same ground here today, though I may not completely succeed. So this is the first time we've spoken.
Yes.
Though we've been exchanging messages for a while now. As is often the case for me, I feel like I know you already, basically because I've been following your travels through the Americas via your YouTube videos. Does that surprise you? Or in fact, is that one of your objectives to try and make a connection with people through your videos?
Yes, it does surprise me when it's somebody I don't know, because I would have thought that mainly it's just people that I know following me. So to actually talk to somebody who has watched my stuff is going to be interesting. It wasn't so much of my objective, but it kind of is my objective at the same time, if that makes sense. Just to kind of build a bit of a public profile for who I am and what I'm doing for my long term. But this isn't about trying to make a bundle of money from being a YouTuber. I hate that phrase, YouTuber. Whatever it is.
So what was your vision then for the video series before you set off, and has that changed during the trip?
I suppose my vision was just to document my journey, because it doesn't matter how many photographs you take of something. First, you don't tend to look back at the photographs, but it also doesn't necessarily bring out emotions and other stuff. But yet, filming it on my journey where you've got laughter, sound, all the other stuff that goes with a moving picture, it was for me to be able to remember what I've done. And now, even when I've looked back on my journey, those memories come pouring back to me like I was there right that second. So I think that was really my main objective, was to build a memory for me. It just happens to be that I'm putting out there for everybody else to look at too.
Does the fact that you're making videos putting them out on YouTube, does that help with the discipline of making sure that you do document it and do create those sort of, I mean, you're creating memories, but you're sort of creating a sort of kind of a parallel record of your memories. But the fact of the discipline, does that actually help you? Like when you get up in the morning and you're about to head off, do you think, well, I've got to shoot some footage today?
Yes and no. It really depends on where I'm going, what I'm up to, what frame of mind I'm in, because sometimes there's nothing, so I don't film anything. And then there's other days I just don't have that desire because I'm more interested in what I'm doing than picking up the camera. Then I pay for that when it comes to editing because I might not have any content. So I have had a battle sometimes with myself to say, I need to do this because I'm better to have something than nothing. So it can be a battle to be disciplined. And then sometimes things happen and you just don't have a camera out. So when I make that effort, I kind of do get some good content, if that makes sense.
Sure. Do you find that you have to put yourself in that frame of mind pretty much first thing in the morning? Like, I'm going to prioritize filming. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to capture stuff today.
Yes, completely.
Right.
If I don't start the day with, I'm going to film some stuff today, then I'm halfway through the day and what I film makes no sense. So it does have to kind of be, right, I'm going to do this off-road route to here, or I'm going to be going to here, so I'll film a load of stuff. Whereas if I try and start in the middle of the day, I'm saying this like 11 months in, because as the journey's evolved and changed, I know I made more of an effort after the first few weeks, and then the last few weeks, I've not made a lot of effort because I've not done a lot, if that makes sense.
Right.
But yes, if I make that conscious decision, this is what I'm going to do today, I do film good stuff.
Because the other thing I was wondering about was, do you sort of put yourself under an obligation to document everything? In other words, even if you're not doing anything or nothing special, do you still feel that you need to have a video record of the fact that you didn't do anything? Or are you very happy and comfortable with the idea that if it's nothing special, I'm not going to film it? Are you able to focus the filming on the things that you really think are worthwhile filming, as opposed to, I'm going to document my whole journey, both the boring bits and the more interesting bits?
No, I don't film everything. There's so many things that I think are absolutely pointless, and maybe people want to see that because that is part of what goes on in your journey, but at the same time there's only so much content I can gather, can store, can edit. I would say you're only seeing a very small part of just my daily routine, whether it's going to the laundrette, whether it's washing stuff at a sink. Those stuff I don't do. If I'm adjusting my chain, lubing it up, I don't video it. The thing I do struggle with is putting a camera in somebody's face and trying to film interactions and stuff like that. So you've probably noticed in my stuff, my interactions are generally with people I'm around regularly, not just complete strangers. I do feel I'm almost invading their privacy, if that makes sense. So yeah, I don't film everything. And then sometimes I go, should have filmed that. So it's a balance between telling everything or just telling some things.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that you bring up the fact that you're a little bit uncomfortable filming strangers, because, I mean, it's supposedly a solo journey, right, that you're undertaking. However, you do seem to spend a lot of time in the company of either other or sometimes you've been staying with some friends, particularly I think up in the States, you were staying with friends, or actually in Canada as well, or just some generous strangers that you met along the way. And I noticed that you've filmed those other people that you know a little bit, but I have sensed that there's a hesitation to incorporate more people, even those people that you know, but just more people into your videos. And so, drawing on my own experience, I've got a sister-in-law who's a really good photographer, and I remember we were in Taiwan at one stage, and we went to a temple, because the temples in Taiwan are amazing. They're really active, and you can go to them and they're used by the people, which is completely different to mainland China. And she was really getting in the face of people. She, like, with her camera, she was really up close to these people who were praying and stuff like that. And I just, there's no way I could do that. I just did not feel comfortable. And yet, of course, her photos were amazing. I'm with you totally. I would feel completely uncomfortable. I mean, I even feel uncomfortable getting into the face of people I do know, even quite good friends with cameras, because most people actually don't like cameras in their face, I've discovered. I mean, is that your experience? Or have you noticed that change? Has there been a change in that kind of reception or behavior as you've moved through the Americas?
I've found that when you stick a camera in someone's face, and even for me, that natural, conversation, whatever it is, tends to become a little bit stunted. It's not just natural. If it was a discrete camera, it'd probably be great because I wouldn't even notice it's there. But people kind of freeze, and it's like if I put a camera in someone's face and ask her a question, and I'll get a one-word answer, it's like, And I think also the time that I've spent with friends or people who've, taken me in, I want to spend the time with them rather than trying to film them to make a story out of it. And there is a story there, and I haven't captured it. And I must admit, if I had captured something, put more in, maybe the content would be more interesting. But I'm also enjoying my time with these people.
Absolutely. And I think you've got to respect your hosts, your friends, the people that you're meeting. And you also don't want to detract from the experience you're having, because once you turn cameras on, it just changes the whole context of what's going on, doesn't it?
Completely. I'm then filmmaking and not socializing.
Yeah.
And my journey isn't just about making a film. It's about my journey, and the film was kind of secondary.
Yeah, for sure. Have you had any regrets in terms of, is there something that you haven't filmed, but you feel you should have or would have liked to have filmed? And does that cause stress as you go down the road, particularly when you think that you may never pass through some of these places ever again, never get a chance to film something?
I suppose not getting the drone out enough, actually. I'm carrying this drone that I hardly use because, especially when I was traveling with Charlie, what I call Wee Man, and the two Germans, Sven and Ellen, there were times that we would travel in places, and to stop and film and get the drone out and do all that, it takes time. And there was many things that I wish I had put the drone up for, because you just can't see it. Even me there, if I had put the drone up, I could have got such a different view of it. And when I do put it up, I'm like, wow, that's incredible. I think that's probably the only thing I haven't used enough. And because I don't use it very often, I kind of learn in each time, and that sucks up time. So when I'm on my own, it's easy. But when I'm with other people, and as you noticed, there's been quite a lot of my journey, I have actually been traveling with other people. So taking up their time, I'm very, very conscious of. But yet I know that when they've been watching all their stuff back, they're really glad that I filmed it. So I think if I was to go back and start those again, I would make more of an effort to especially do some of the drone shots. Not necessarily because I want to put it in the video, but because actually just for me, even seeing it, there was this one particular place, myself and Wee Man had done the Robert Campbell Highway up to Ross River up in the Yucatan, and then we turned down the South Canal Road and we put the drone up, and the colours of the lakes and the patterns and all the other stuff you can't see from ground level. So that was one of those moments that I knew was the right thing to do, and there was many of those that I haven't done and I should have done. So I think that would be the only real regret of stuff I've not filmed. Other stuff is just consequential, punctures, breakdowns. I mean, there's only so much you can film and put in. So those things I'm not really bothered about.
It's interesting what you say about it feels every time you bring the drone out, you almost have to relearn how to use it because you're not using it very often. At the same time, I imagine you're pretty slick with your cameras and everything now, and filming is pretty efficient process for you. I mean, at the moment, what's your camera set up on the bike?
I've got two GoPros, one on the handlebar, one on my chin piece. I did have a nightmare with one of them. I had I don't know, whatever it was, and it just kept freezing. I had bad sound. So there's many bits that I've only got one camera actually working, which I think you probably see that a lot earlier in the stuff. There was only really a helmet camera and nothing else other than when I did a bit of B-roll. All my B-roll is done with, it was an iPhone 12 until I smashed it, and now I've just got a new iPhone 16 Pro. The footage I've been getting from it is fantastic. It's quick, it's easy, it's in my pocket. I did have a Canon GX7 Mark III, but that was a real effort to get out and to set up. But I also found that its quality was shocking. You put it next to the iPhone footage, because if you want like two camera angles, for example, and it was terrible. It was, you call it noisy, isn't it? But it's grainy, and the quality was just horrendous. So I pretty much, all I use is the iPhone, the two GoPros, and when I put it up the drone, that's it.
And just what kind of drone have you got? Is it less than 250 grams?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I got the Mini 3 Pro. I had a Mini when I first started, and I thought, because the 3 had come out and it had the so-called active track. So I replaced it for that, and it is a better drone, but it doesn't have active track. So I do try and fly it whilst riding sometimes, and which can be a little bit interesting. But yeah, that's what I've got, is the DJI Mini 3 Pro.
Right. Well, I mean, you spent a lot of time on the BDR routes in the US, didn't you? So that's kind of, I look at the opportunities to fly drones there, because I mean, it's just here in Germany, you've got to be very careful about where you fly things. There just seems to be so much opportunity. In the US, it seems to be a bit of a drone flyer's paradise. I mean, what's it like through the Central America where you are now, or the top of South America, I guess?
Yeah, it's not that easy actually, because, well, you're in the jungle. So lots of the stuff is covered. And then when you do get up to altitude, because I'm in wet season coming into wetter season, I get a lot of cloud cover. Sometimes I manage to break through the clouds, and I have used it a couple of times, but it can be quite windy because you're 12, 13,000 feet up. So I haven't got it out as much because I don't want to lose it. I don't want to be trying to scale a mountain to find it. Yes, in the States it was easier. There was more open space. There was less obstructions. But currently here in Colombia, I'm not saying there isn't obstructions, but a lot of where I've been have been, or I've been so interested in just my riding that putting a drone up isn't at the top of my list, especially because I'm solo at the moment. And I do have these back issues, and I've had a couple of times where I've dropped my bike. So the last thing I want to do is have a drone up in the air. I've dropped my bike. I'm trying to find that, and there's a drone going. So at the moment, I'm kind of staying away from it. I'm looking forward to getting further south into Peru and places like that, where you've got the vast expanses that I think the drone will really give something special, because tree cover's tree cover, and it's just a lot of trees. So yeah, I'm excited for more open space. Right.
Okay, so your current trip is not your first foray into creating videos and publishing them to YouTube. I was looking back, and I can see that you first posted videos on your channel in 2016. In fact, following a 26-day trip through Rajasthan in India. And then about 4 years later, you started posting a bit more regularly. And I mentioned specifically the video called Demon Rides with Big Sky Riders in Wales 2021, which was published in the middle of that year. At that point, we start to see a style of video which is pretty close to the formula that you're using today. So that's the point of view camera, and then the handlebar mounted camera as well for the headshot, the B-roll ride-bys, headshot off the bike talking to camera, which is also quite prominent, sort of vlog style. So that's sort of the formula. That's your style of filmmaking. You've obviously continued with that. So can you just explain to me why that style works for you, or why you've settled on that style?
Because I'm not setting out to make a film as such, like, I don't know, let's say, right, it's going to be a week trip from here to here. I want to do this, this, and this along the way and film it and then make a kind of epic film, which I would really, dearly love to do. I'm filming on the hop. I don't know where I'm going. I don't actually know what's happening during the day. So it's become this vlog style, which is quick and easy and doesn't take up too much time in the respect of staging stuff, which I have thought about. You know, if I was say doing a week's trip, then maybe it would be very different. But because I'm constantly on the go, and some days I'm only doing 100 kilometers, some days I'm doing 350 kilometers, you know, the day is busy. So to spend lots of time setting up camera angles and then trying to think of the edit in the future, which I kind of try to, it's not always that easy, especially when there's other people around, you know, and I don't mean other people in the respect of people I might be traveling with, but people who live in the area, you know, setting up a camera and trying to do all of these things, you know, can take you an hour to get a 5-second shot. And I just simply don't have that time. And if I was able to then sit down and do an edit where I can be really, really creative with stuff, that was great. But because I'm traveling, I don't have that time. So it's just become quick, bang, 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 this is what I'm doing, this is where I'm at. I don't like doing narration. I would love to do narration, but I sound like a wooden horse. So it tends to be I'll tell you what I'm doing rather than me narrating something. Again, because I think narration, you kind of have to script it, go through it, tell the story with the content. And it's not that I don't have that ability, I just don't have that time to do that. So that's why it's come this quick, easy, this is what I'm doing, this is where I'm at. I don't know, sometimes I watch it and I think, oh, it's not bad. And then sometimes I watch it and think, I really need to change this. And sometimes you might have noticed, I think the Skagway one, we set up a shot outside this building and with several camera angles and, you know, it worked quite nicely, but I don't have time to do that generally. So that's why it's evolved into this vlog, I suppose.
Yeah. Was that the one when you were doing some maintenance on the bike? There was something where you were changing like a tire or something, or doing something, and you really had spent what looked like a day filming it because you had all the different multiple angles and you must have shot it multiple times.
I did that in like half an hour, how it took me to change the tyre. I remember exactly where that was actually. That was Dease Lake in Canada. So yeah, basically I set one camera up, did some bits, moved the camera to another point, then changed the tyre in another bit and so on. So it literally took me the time it took me to change the tyre.
Okay.
No, the shot I was talking about is we came from Haynes to Skagway on the ferry, and then we were in this old gold rush town, and there was a shot of 4 of us walking along the boardwalk, and I think that was done with 3 or 4 cameras, and that was the one where I made that real effort to think of those different things for the edit. And yeah, that tyre one, I did think about that because we were just sitting there chilling and I was like, oh, how can I make this look interesting? So yes.
So that's the thing that's interesting to me, is that I can see that you know how to do that, that you have a filmmaker's sort of eye, or maybe an editor's eye. Is it the editing that's taught you to do that, or is it just through watching lots of other stuff? Because I certainly think when you do have the time, you know how to construct something that is, you know, I always sort of think about my eye being bored by something, you know, if it doesn't change. But you're able to put a sequence together which is very stimulating for the eye, and it follows sort of the narrative style that's being developed within the filmmaking, you know, within the history of filmmaking. So I can see that you're able to do that sometime, but I can also understand completely that you just don't have the time. And if you're traveling with other people, it's just Yeah,
when I put the effort in to do it like that, as you say, I have the edit in mind and how I want it to look. And I must admit, I have no filmmaking experience at all. I've just picked up a camera and had a fiddle and learning to edit. So now when I watch programs, films, or other YouTube stuff, I'm looking and seeing how the edit is done. I'm like, oh, I like that, or they should have done that there, or I'm talking like an expert, which I certainly am not. But I do have a better understanding of not boring you with long footage. And I know that one of the videos I put out recently, I should have cut 5 minutes out of it. It was the gorge video in Mexico, and I just felt it dragged on, and I'm looking at it after it's gone live, and I'm like, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that.
I think I may have almost fallen asleep in that one. But I want to put some context around this. I'd just flown back from New Zealand, and I don't really sleep on planes much. So I'd been awake for like 36 hours. And so it was a bit of a struggle to get through that one. But yeah, I know exactly the one you mean.
I'm self-critical. So I sometimes can see exactly what I've done wrong. I did think about pulling it down and re-putting one up and taking some out. But I just thought, it's up there now. You can either fast forward or end the video. But yeah, it was too long. It was too long.
Yeah.
But believe me, that was a long canyon. We'd done 105 kilometers by the time we got to that. And then it was like another 16 kilometers of that riverbed. So there was no way to set up cameras. So I only had the one, but there were so many amazing shots that I thought, oh, this will be interesting. But yes, it certainly wasn't.
Is it the same canyon that the Germans went through recently? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the Germans, and I guess I could sort of shout out to the Germans. So that's Sven and Ellen. Yeah.
I will say it's called BIKEmitUNS, but it's not, because I don't speak German. So you do. Okay. You should be able to pronounce it.
Yeah. So it's BIKEmitUNS, which basically means bike with us.
That's it. Yeah. Them.
So if you go look for them on YouTube and on Instagram, and while we're doing this, we better give a shout out to the wee man as well.
To the wee man, yes.
Yeah. So what's Charlie's handle?
So Charlie's is ADV_Charlie. So right. Charlie and the Germans are actually together at the moment in Panama. They fly down to Colombia tomorrow.
Okay.
So I've been separate from Sven and Ellen since I left them in California after the Yosemite. So we passed very briefly in Baja because we were all meant to do Christmas together. Charlie I then met up with again, and then Charlie's bike broke because it's a KTM.
You've got a KTM as well.
Shh. So he flew back to UK while that was getting fixed. So then I went solo, but travelled with somebody else, and then they've all now met up. So yeah, I'm solo, they're together.
The obvious question is are you likely to cross paths again? What do you think?
Possibly. I spoke to them the other day about when they go up to Medellin, maybe they swing across and we'll just meet up for one day for dinner, because I've been in Colombia for just over 2 months, and I'm going to start heading south now to Ecuador. So if we meet up, it will be very short, for maybe a day. After that, I really don't know. We're all trying to get to Ushuaia for about the same time, and I need to, again, still slow down because of the season. So I may be in Peru for 2 to 3 months. So maybe there comes a point that I've slowed enough again for them to catch up, and then we can all carry on. I'd love dearly to travel with them. We had so much fun. I mean, you can see from the videos together, we laughed, we joked, we rode together, we had an amazing time. So who knows? But at the moment, yeah, it's just me and my Todd.
Yeah, it's I just have to say it was quite funny when I was following you, and I was following them separately, and I had no idea that you guys would join up, and the fact that these two people, or two groups of people that I was following on Instagram and YouTube suddenly were all together. It was kind of, it made the world feel like a very small place suddenly.
It is, until you have to ride around it.
Yeah, okay.
It's
sure.
rather large. So when I set off on the journey, I looked at the map and I thought, I'm just going to pop across the US, just about 4,500 miles, just to get across. But yeah, it is a small world. I've run into quite a lot of people that I follow on Instagram as well, which I wasn't expecting. None of them are really filmmakers. They're more Instagrammers, instant reels, boom, boom, boom. Only a couple have done YouTube stuff, but the rest are just, it's more that instant bang, bang, bang. Whereas I'm doing that long format, which I think takes a lot more No, I won't take anything away from Instagram because you do have to put effort into that. But I think the long format is it is a full-time job, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I guess, I assume you're doing all your editing on a laptop. Is that right?
Yeah.
So I guess you can, particularly if you're young, not like us old guys, but if you're young, you seem to be able to do a lot on your phone these days, and people are prepared to, edit on their phones for Instagram and stuff like that. But I personally can't think of anything worse than having to make a YouTube video on a phone. I guess my eyesight's too bad. I want a decent screen to be able to do that kind of thing. Which actually leads me to my next question, which is, obviously you've made the decision to film and edit on the road. So how's that working out, particularly the whole editing as you go, creating content as you go, as opposed to making something at the end of the trip?
At the beginning, it was a real nightmare. Firstly, because I'd only used Final Cut Pro a couple of times for bits I was doing at home, and I had plenty of time, and I had a 27-inch monitor, and, So when I first set off, the first few weeks, first I was trying to get content so that I had something to actually edit. But the journey at the beginning was so fast, covering so much ground and not a lot of downtime. So the downtime, it meant I was basically starting from scratch. I was learning how to use the edit suite. I was learning how to look for music, etc. Even though I'd done a bit at home, it wasn't the same as, right, I'm actually doing it now. So there was a point that I was about 4 months behind, and I was trying to do a bit here and trying to do that. And I think I without going back, I can't tell you, but I think I was posting every couple of weeks. And also my understanding of sound, of this, of that was terrible. And because I wasn't using the edit suite enough, each time I came back, I was relearning. So as time has gone on, I've got a lot faster with my edits. I also don't film as much junk, if that makes sense, than I used to, whereas I had so much content that was like, this is rubbish. And trying to find little bits which would help was so much time consumed doing that I got to the point at one point that I didn't think I was ever going to catch up. And I suppose once I started coming out of Canada, and because we were chasing the seasons, so I couldn't take a week off to sit there and do that. So at first it was really, really difficult. And as time's gone on, I've got faster with the editing, faster with doing stuff and understanding how to put content together with music and edits, and I'm learning how to zoom in and zoom out and do all those bits and bobs. So it's become a lot easier. And then by the time I got down to Mexico, myself and Wee Man stopped for about 3 weeks, and we literally just sat there for 2 weeks solid, editing stuff to try and catch up. And I think at that point you'll have noticed that I think from November, December, January, I was literally putting one out every single week because I was getting an edit down in about a day and a half. And now what I'm doing is my Mexico and Central America stuff, I'm making longer videos, but trying to put less stuff in it, if that makes sense, and move the journey on so I catch up. Because there's also times that was nothing. So now my edits, I would say, if I've got good content and there's a good story there, I can do an episode in about a day and a half, which is still a long time. But now I'm in the middle of editing Guatemala into El Salvador, which I'm only a couple of months behind. And being as a lot of Colombia I've not filmed, I've not got a massive amount. So I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks I'll actually be within a couple of weeks of where I genuinely am. But they have definitely become easier. But at times it was very overwhelming how far behind I was and how slowly I was editing. I did at one point question why I was doing it, because my downtime was editing, and that's not what I wanted, but it's got better.
And by downtime, I guess you mean not moving on the bike. So maybe it's places where you want to explore a little bit, check out the sites and stuff. Rather than be stuck somewhere where you're editing. Are you doing much camping still, or are you pretty much in accommodation with power and stuff and access to Wi-Fi at the moment?
Now I'm doing a lot more. Pretty much since Mexico, I've been in accommodation because it's reasonably cheap. And the guy I was traveling with didn't want to be camping. And actually, to be fair, there was much of it. The weather was so bad that I didn't want to be in a tent either. Colombia is not as easy to just camp as you think. It's either somebody's land or you're on the side of a mountain or it's torrential rain. Just because I'm in that part of the season. So it's I've got this 2-bedroom apartment here for $18 a day, which is cheap. So it's like, right, I'll make use of it. So at the moment I have power and Wi-Fi and other stuff, but I do feel as I head further south, that's going to start to change and it will be back to I don't really have accommodation for a week or whatever. So I'm making the most of it.
Right. And when you're traveling, how do you charge your batteries? Are you able to charge off the bike as you travel?
Yeah, what I try and do is if I've got electricity the night before, I'll plug everything in and just let it all charge overnight. I've got a couple of USBs on the bike, so some stuff I can charge, and I've got a monstrous battery pack that can do 2 charges of my laptop. So that charges pretty quick on the bike. So if I am somewhere without power, I can then use that to run the laptop while I'm doing stuff, which is big and heavy, but it's actually very good.
And how do you, have you had many days where you've been riding all day and then you spend the evening editing? Is that something that you've had to deal with?
It really depends on what time I stop because, it's not all fun and games. By the time you find somewhere, then you go and find some food or you have to do some laundry or might have to do some bike maintenance. And if you're only stopping one night, you want to go and have a look at where you are. And then sometimes you're just exhausted. It's been a long day. You've been in the saddle 8-10 hours sometimes. So I do try and find accommodation by kind of 4 or 5 o'clock latest to give me time to do stuff. But then to sit and edit, I really do need my head in the right space or I stare at the screen and I move clips around so nothing happens. So when I tend to sit and do an edit, I tend to try and have 4 or 5 hours at least so I can just really get into it and then it starts to flow. But if I just try and do an hour here, an hour there, unless I'm tidying something up, there's no creativity there.
You must be generating a lot of footage. So what do you do with your footage? Are you keeping all your raw footage or are you overwriting cards and stuff? What's your approach being?
So I've got a couple of SSD drives. I've got about 3 terabytes at the moment that I'm carrying with me. I have thought about going over it, but then I thought if I ever want to do something with what I've got, then I've lost that. So at the moment, I'm hanging on to it. I have thought about uploading it onto, I think it's Dropbox or something, but I'm battling with what to do with that because there's going to come a point that I need to get some more drives or unload those ones. So what do you reckon? Do I keep them? Do I get rid of them?
Yeah, I think the problem with cloud storage is that the files are so big. A, you're going to need a lot of space. And B, it's going to take so long to upload them that you're going to be spending all your downtime just trying to upload files. And I somehow I don't think that's going to work. I think there's probably a business opportunity for some company to take people's hard drives and send them back to their home countries and in a safe and secure place. Because ideally that's what you want to be doing. You want to be that full up drive, send it back to the UK, know that it's somewhere safe and secure so that when you eventually get back to the UK, you can take it. Because that is one question I had, is that do you plan to maybe make something a bit more epic when you get home, like a full feature length film incorporating bits from the whole trip? Is that something that you've thought about?
I think I would like to, and I think that's why I've not got rid of the footage, because there is always that opportunity. And I think if I did that, there would be more narration to tell the story rather than it being all the raw footage with, I don't know, whatever talking. I think it would be more let's just say it's going to be 2 hours. But that would be 2 years condensed into, telling that story rather than it being like a diary. I think that's probably deep down why I haven't got rid of the footage. just in case, you know.
Yeah, and somehow I hope you are able to sort of continue in that way, because I think it would be awesome to come back in maybe in 5 or 10 years' time. I'm not saying you're going to be away for 5 or 10 years. I mean, in 5 or 10 years' time, to have that material and to have a decent microphone rather than crouching into your laptop trying to do narration on the road now. If you're going to do narration, I think it really helps if it's done sort of like studio style, like really good quality.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think it would also be I would imagine, at least for me, it would be an amazing project to do 5 or 10 years after a journey, and just going through all the material and trying to find a story. And I'm not telling you what to do, Mr. Demon. But
the thing is also, at the moment, I'm still waiting for that story, if that makes sense. You know, yes, I've got little sub-stories going on, but it's that bigger story that is evolving over that period of time that I think will come out in the future. But at the moment, it's that day-to-day story rather than the bigger picture. And that is also where it kind of, as we said before, leads to the possible future thing, is it might be that story is what sets me off for the next thing in my life. But it's definitely food for thought, and it is something that is there, hence the reason why I've still got all the raw footage.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I fully approve of your policy not to override anything at the moment, and I hope you're able to continue in that way, even if it means that by the time you get to, I don't know, Asia or somewhere, you've got 10 SSDs in your backpack and it's really weighing everything down.
I think if I'm going to Asia, I'm going to have to go back to the UK to get visas and carnets and stuff like that. So I'll take it all back then and then bring out some nice fresh ones.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, this is maybe a philosophical question, but I don't know how easy it is to answer this, but what do you think are the elements that are necessary for a video to be successful? And when I mean successful, it's like, what do you think a successful video is? Because I don't want you to be thinking, oh, well, it's this many likes or this many views on YouTube. That, to me, is not necessarily what a successful video is. It's more what you're really proud of when you make something. So you've said earlier that, you know, there are bits and pieces that you're really quite proud of, you know. Okay, well, we won't talk about the gorge, the valley. We won't talk about that again. But maybe there have been, you know, even if it's just small sequences where you're just really happy with the timing of the edit or something. But if we talk about that kind of success or what you've been really proud of, what are those things?
I think something that keeps the mind occupied, something that's constantly changing and a reasonably fast pace. I know sometimes you need something to be a little bit slow because there's more that's going on, but I think multiple camera angles that keep your mind flicking from place to place as these things change, I think that's important. Music's a massive one, and I do struggle finding the right music. You can spend weeks looking for music, and sometimes I have to settle. So I think something that is constantly keeping your attention span is what makes a good video, film, whichever it is, whether it's a 5-minute thing or an hour thing. I think if your mind starts to wander, and I'm guilty of it in some of the stuff I've put together, my mind is wandering. I'm watching it myself and I'm like, actually, if your mind is wandering, you've lost that subject. And I think it's that constant change is good.
When you're writing, do you listen to music or anything else, or do you have any sort of thing going on with the headset or headphones in you? So you ride in complete, well, it's obviously not complete silence, but it's just you and the bike and your thoughts? Yeah,
when you're on a 690 with a acro pipe on it, there's no silence going on. Generally, because the 690 is noisy and I have earplugs in, if I have something coming through, I don't really hear it. So if I'm listening to music, it's got to be music that I know, because otherwise there's so much that I don't hear. I do sometimes listen to a podcast, but again, sometimes I miss stuff.
Yeah.
So really on the 690, I don't. When I was back in the UK riding an FJR for work, because I didn't wear earplugs, I was around London and stuff like that, I would listen to the radio or podcasts quite a lot whilst riding. But on this journey, majority of it is I'm with my own thoughts, which sometimes aren't so good. Sometimes they are. So yeah, answer to your question is yes and no, but more no.
Okay, because what I was going to ask, that was sort of setting up the next question, which is, as you're going along, as you're riding along, are you almost like writing a script, a film script as you go along? Are you thinking about the story, like either the micro story, the sort of the kind of stories you're dealing with at the moment, sort of the day-to-day kind of stories, or are you occasionally indulging yourself and thinking about, in 5 years' time when I sit down to make my 2-hour epic? Are you thinking as you're riding along about what the story could be? Is that the kind of thoughts that sometimes cross your mind when you're riding?
No, I have no thoughts at all. No. I do try and think of what's kind of happening in the present rather than the future, because it's only what's happening right in front of me in that moment. I could come around a corner and there's a landslide. Oh, I've got a great bit of footage. Or it could be a case of I'm on my arse. Like when I was in Costa Rica, I was going up this slippery clay slope and I was just thinking how epic this was, and then all of a sudden I'm on my bum and I spent the next 20 minutes trying to pick my bike up in a slippery thing and putting my back out. I did set a camera up for that, which is something I wouldn't normally have done, but I thought, this will make some good footage. So I'm kind of more in the present because everything's constantly changing. Whether it's scenery, landscapes, people, things are constantly changing on this journey, that I don't think I really have much time to think the future. It's more about what's happening right now.
Was that even the case when you're on the Dempster Highway? And there was a bit where you were going through the middle of America where there were just massive wheat fields, where it was just the straight road just went on and on and on. If you're able to maintain yourself in the present in those situations, I admire you, because I think even I would drift off to other places on some of those straight roads.
The one going across the US, that was going across Oklahoma. So I'd come up through the prairies from Arkansas, and it was kind of nice rolling fields that led into those long grids of just straight lines for, I think it was about 500 or 600 miles. You don't, and on those I was traveling at quite a pace as well. And there's lots of crossroads. So you don't get that much time to let the mind drift, because you need to be seeing what's coming across those junctions. So you don't have time to think about things. You are really absorbed in what you are now. And then when we did the Dempster, the Dempster is from when you get on it at the Alaska Highway up to Tuck, I think is just short of 900, was it 950 kilometers? It's a long way. That road is constantly changing. Every kilometer, every meter is different. So because you're really involved in staying on the bike, in the deep gravel, the slipperiness, when it rains, the calcium chloride sticks to stuff and becomes almost like slime that you're riding on. You're focused. We did on the return journey, we did 780 kilometers in one hit. You just don't have time because you're involved. If you're on tarmac, you can just sit there going, Bob. But on something like that, where it is literally constantly changing, you're more involved in riding than thinking about anything else. And looking at your fuel, knowing that you've got 400 kilometers to the next fuel stop, and are you going to make it kind of thing. Those were more the things that were prevalent than thinking about anything else.
Is it too early to ask you what the favourite bit's been so far?
This is a question I get asked actually quite a lot, not just by other travellers, but people I meet along this journey. I got to say, British Columbia, the Yukon Turn, and the Northern Territories was just the most incredible landscape, sense of remoteness, and being around the wildlife was just unbelievable. It was fantastic, and I would do those places again. But also much of the US, for different reasons. Forget filmmaking on this side of it. The riding in the US is incredible. There is so much to do. I've done, 0.1%. The BDRs, the bit of the Trans-America Trail I was doing, Utah, the Moab, riding the Schaefer Trail, all of those places are just unbelievable. But you never really had the complete sense of remoteness that you have up in Canada. And I think I craved that, and I'm craving that at the moment, because since I hit, especially Mexico coming down, I've not felt that remoteness that I'm longing for, actually. And I think I'm hoping as I head south to Peru and all of that, it will feel a little bit more remote. I don't know what it is. I mean, I've grown up and worked in cities, and I love all of that. I love the hustle and bustle. But actually on this journey, that's not what I'm wanting. I'm wanting that peace and that tranquility of just being away from people, if that makes sense. And I've done 50,000 kilometers now, so I've seen a lot.
Oh, well, thanks for spending some of your alone time with us today. So that's, appreciate that. Okay, Mr. Demon Rowley, I have to ask you, because I will get into all sorts of trouble with my listenership, how did you get into motorcycles?
How long have you got? That's a whole other podcast, isn't it?
It is a whole other podcast, and I have already, of course, pointed people in the direction of those other podcasts where it's extremely well covered, but maybe you can give us like the quicker version.
I will condense it down to 17,000 words. Okay, so basically when I was 15, I knocked around with people in cars. I wanted a car, I wanted girls and music playing and all that sort of stuff. But in the UK at 16, you can't drive a car, so you can get a motorbike or a moped. So I got one for a year for transport, but I got thoroughly hooked on the things. And when I was 17, my mum was going to buy me a car. I was like, no, buy me a bike. She wouldn't, so I went and bought another bike. And then that was basically my entry into riding motorbikes. And I was around a big group of other 16, 17, 18-year-olds. We used to rip around, go here, go to bike rallies, go to this, that, you name it. I just was hooked. I never got my first car until I was 28, and that was a classic car. In that meantime, I had started at 17 as a motorcycle courier in London. That then led to me doing that for 10 years. When I was 19, because I was riding like an absolute numpty, I basically went out and bought myself a 350 production racer and started club racing. That led on to me going to do British Championship, which led on to me ending up doing Endurance Championship on a superbike at World Championship level. Also in that time, I worked at Donington Park as a motorsport instructor at the race school for Ron Aslam. I also, after 10 years of being a motorcycle courier, I managed to wheedle my way into a company called Virgin Limo Bike, which was a motorbike taxi firm. And I spent 25 years as a London motorcycle taxi. So I've kind of made a living out of my passion. So for 35 years, that's what I did.
People, go listen to these other podcast episodes because they're absolutely brilliant. I mean, the limo stuff just sounds fascinating. You've obviously had these amazing clients. Once we're finished recording, you'll tell me all the interesting gossip and story about those. I can't. Obviously, we're not going to do that now, but I guess it's all led you to where you are now. And somehow I think bikes are always going to be in your life, aren't they?
Yeah, I like I say, I got one at 16 for a year for transport. I never ever envisioned myself, riding motorbikes. It was just for a year for transport. And I just found something that I was quite good at. And even though I've probably covered 1.5 million miles in my time, I did try and work out a rough idea. I do get those moments where if I haven't ridden for a week, I want to ride, but I don't go for a pointless ride just for the sake of having a ride, because most people who ride, they only get to ride at weekends. When you've ridden pretty much every day of your life, 8-10 hours a day for 35 years, it's nice to not do that, but I can't ever see myself not riding motorbikes. Even with the injuries that I've sustained and I still carry and I suffer from daily, they have, along with myself, shaped my life. I've chased my dreams, and my dreams happen to have been racing a motorbike. The idea of when I first saw, like a Le Mans 24 hour, and I was like, I want to do that. I need to do that. When I saw the taxi bike stuff, the limo bike, and I was 26 at the time, I was like, I don't want to be a dispatch rider anymore. I want to do that, which led me into meeting some amazing people in my time, to be riding around London with Kylie Minogue sat on the back of your bike, or someone like Boris Johnson or David Cameron, or Sir Richard Branagh, Kenneth Branagh, people like that. I've been very lucky, but those are because I chased dreams, and I've fulfilled most of my dreams by just pig-headedness, I suppose. And motorbikes have been an integral part of that, really. I suppose I've lived many people's dreams, but they've also been my dreams. And I just think if you've got a dream, go and chase it, go and get it. And motorbikes have been that dream, I suppose.
Okay, my final last two questions. First of all, can you identify any key filmmaking influences on you? And, I do say to people, it's in any genre, from any age or era. What are the kind of films that you like to watch? And I'm not talking just about motorcycle films. I'm not talking just about YouTube. I mean, just any sort of film or television content. What's your favorites? What's the stuff that you really love?
Oh, that's a massive one, because there's so many different things. I mean, I'll just use Tarantino, for example. His boom, 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 his kind of stuff, which is very clever. I love all of that. I grew up with Star Wars, the original stuff, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. Those epic stories, and how everything is intertwined and reveals itself as the three films go on. I'll say three because to me that's Star Wars. I love those kind of things. But there's been some amazing YouTubers, content creator, I don't know what you want to say. I mean, Adam Ryman, I like the way he films his stuff, but I like his narration. His voice kind of draws you in. Dylan Whitcomb from Where the Road Ends. I met him at a festival, and listening to him talk, he's got that soothing voice that when he narrates, you get sucked into it. Even if there's a clip that might be a little bit long, his voice is just walking you through it. So those are the kind of things that I like. I like Fortnite stuff. It's clever, it's humorous, it's constantly moving, boom, boom, boom. I like that fast action as well. So I kind of like all sorts of different things. If it doesn't keep my attention, though, I do, like most people, switch off.
Okay, you knew it was coming. From your own personal experience, does the filmmaking enhance or diminish the pleasure of a motorcycle ride?
It's a hard one to answer, because there's times I do enjoy it, don't get me wrong, but there are times that it sucks away from the journey, and that's why I haven't filmed a lot sometimes, because I'm more involved in my journey, because primarily I'm on my journey, not on a filmmaking journey. If I was going to film, like I say, a week or a 2-week thing, and my goal is to have a week away and film, that would be very different. But on this journey, at times, I think that's why I'm going to just go back to why I do it in a vloggy sort of way. I think that's why I do it in that way, because it doesn't take too much away, because I can go boom, 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 boom on the cuff while I'm at it. I think it's been probably more the edit that has taken away, because I feel the pressure of putting something together. And I think also at the beginning, because I was so far behind, I just kept going, I've got to do it, I've got to do it, I've got to do it, I've got to do it. I think now, as I've come along, I don't think it's diminishing as much. It's quite a big one to answer, actually, really, because there's no yes or no to that. I think it's a bit of both. Can I phone a friend on that one, or ask the audience?
thanks so much for being my guest for this episode, Damian Demon. I'm still very uncomfortable saying Demon. Please tell listeners where they can find your work online.
So my film work you can find on YouTube as it's demon_rides, and I do have Instagram. Again, it's demon_rides, but on the Facebook platform, it's just Demon Rides. So I tend to put just photographs and stuff on those, but yes, my YouTube is demon_rides.
Super. Okay. Look, thanks again. I look forward to following your journey as you head south and beyond, I guess. Take care and ride safe.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.